Oh yes, oh yeah.
Hey, yeah, buddy. Back on a
Woo!
Wednesday,
Welcome back on a
as
Wednesday,
always.
as
Suck
always.
it,
Suck at
mosquitoes.
mosquitoes. I did want to mention that over the weekend I got this little piece of hot fire for all you mosquitoes out there. This Thermacell is a beast. I will never buy another mosquito candle again until hopefully they make a Thermacell Murder Hornet package. Then I'll just upgrade to that. But for now, I still use the candle for that. But this thing is a savage for mosquitoes. So sorry to all mosquitoes out there, but not that sorry. This thing is a monster. Like I thought it would just scatter them, and it actually apparently kills them. The first time I turned it on, they just started like dropping out of the sky. So I don't know, but I like it.
And it definitely looks like a taser.
Yeah, and it looks like a taser, which is cool, or like a grill. I don't know if this camera is. Yeah, you can see a little smoke coming up off that.
See a little bit there.
Look at that. So that's what you're dealing with now, mosquitoes.
There we go.
The lesson here is just stay away.
Warning out to all the mosquitoes in San Diego.
I'm putting my my foot down now.
Putting them on notice.
Literally, if you want this smoke, come and get it. But thank you guys for joining us. Back on a Wednesday. The main thing, obviously, in the sports world right now that we will dive into is the big three leagues here in America, which would be, football. They're pretty much set to the side right now because they're just waiting to see. They're in a pretty favorable position right now, how the other leagues are going to do the logistics and things like that. But then you have baseball and basketball, hockey coming in as well. Setting their plan and kind of, staking their claim to get back out there. We'll dive into all that. I think that the main one on everyone's mind, and I know for myself and Tyler, is baseball. A lot of you have seen sort of the situation with again, we talked about it, Monday, it's really coming down to the money right now. They came out with a revised proposal on Tuesday, and the players pretty much freaked out, which the fact that this stuff gets leaked out is crazy to me. But Tyler, if you want to kind of dive into sort of what the revised proposal was and why it was so basically offensive to the players.
Yeah. So the owners did issue the first draft proposal, or first draft revision, I guess we should say, for what the payment plan would be. The players have been pretty steadfast, and we will agree to the prorated deal. Just give us what our per game is, and pay that out based off an 82 game season, whatever that is. So the owners threw out a pretty ridiculous sliding scale where basically the more dollars you get, the less percentage you're going to get paid of it. So kind of stick with me as I go through this. It's kind of weird, and it's definitely tiered out. So basically the proposal is if you're getting paid the league minimum, which as of right now is $563,000, $563,500, you would get paid 90% of that.
Prorated for the games that you play.
Prorated for the games you play, yes.
90% of your game check. Let's just call it that.
And so then from here on out, because they have 6 different scales, and the percentage changes in each scale. In you can qualify for kind of multiple levels on this. It's kind of hard to explain. It was pretty well laid out by Jeff Passan in a thread of tweets last night, so I would recommend checking that out. But so if you are up from above minimum wage to $1 million, you get paid 72.5% of that amount. From $1,001 to $5 million, you get 50%. From $5,001 to $10 million, you get 40%. From $10,001 to $20 million, 30%. And then from $20,001 and above, you get paid at 20%. And again, you can qualify for multiple tiering. So let's just say your contract is $5 million. You get paid the 90% of that first scale, the 72.5% of that second scale, and the 50% of the third scale. Either way, it's a bad proposal. I mean, the players have been, have been vocal about how they're not happy with it. It's, as soon as I saw it, my first thought was it was almost kind of like almost like a trying to divide the union, where it's like, hey, look, these low dollar guys, like, you're going to get most of it. It's it's the multimillionaires, the big guys. They're the ones that are going to hold you out on this. I think it's just kind of a way to break them for the upcoming CBA in a couple of years. But I don't know. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, my first thought was the same. This could be a sort of, I don't hesitate to call it like a conspiracy to divide the union, but I mean, being in the union shoes, imagine if you had like a 52% yes vote. Like, that basically kills the union, or even like a 60-40 yes vote, because majority of guys are not making the mega level money.
Right.
So, they want to get paid, they want to play, but it seems kind of subversive to the union, to where, okay, well, a lot of people that have votes on this will get on board, and it will basically dissolve what we know of the MLB Players Union right now. If they have, some kind of super controversial, like I said, 52, 55, or 60% even yes vote, then that leaves out, 40% of the players said no to it. So that's a huge amount of guys with a lot of money, with contracts that have been signed, that are not pleased with it. And the other thing that my second reaction to that was, okay, so yeah, the biggest, highest paid players, the Harpers, Machados, whatever it is, they're worth as much as you, the owners, dictate that they're worth. That's why they signed the contract, and the bidding war between the Phillies, the Nationals, trying to bring whoever was in the running, for these guys. So now you're basically taking that away. So you have like Mike Trout, the best player in baseball, who was going to make like $34 million, $37 million this year.
Now he's at like $7 million, I think, is what it came out to.
I think it would be less than that. His base pay would be like 5.5 something. It's in real life, it's a lot of money, but for what he is worth, for being one of the best players, if not the best player in baseball, it's a joke. I mean, and also, if you are one of these guys on, the lower tiers, you're probably younger, you don't have the service time, but you could be there someday. So
Sure.
You also have to think, like, what does this do to the whole structure of salaries, where the owners value you at this price that you signed the contract for, and then, like, obviously, the pandemic thing is a special circumstance. We get that. But the contract is signed. I mean, you're worth what they're willing to pay you. Mm-hmm. So if you let them walk over you now, it's like, where does that lead you, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road? Like, you kind of have to be in front of the precedent that's going to get set here. So I think it's pretty much a joke in the eyes of the players. And I will say, on behalf of the players, as a former player,
Union representative Ronnie Davis.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, I'm here. I'm ready for you guys. But one thing I would say is avoid the snap reactions on social media if you are a player, because it seems like everything that has been putting out there, like, the fans are throwing it back in their face, just like what the owners probably wanted. Well, you guys make a bunch of money to play a game. Like, I'd pay you to play this game, all this kind of stuff. So I would lay low, get with the union, come up with a counter proposal. I do think if the union does come back with a counter proposal, that's probably the only thing that gives me hope that a season could still be accomplished here, because that means they're going to obviously take less than the prorated. Like, if they don't come back with anything, then that's just them putting their foot down. Well, you offered us the prorated, and we agreed, and now you're, putting all these different, like, tweaks on it. So if they come back with a counter proposal, that would indicate to me that they're still trying to actually play. But the first one, I think, is going to be completely thrown out. I think what the players union would probably come back with would be a lot of, like, deferments and things like that. Pay us for the games we play this year. If there's some kind of sliding scale, maybe adjust that down a little bit. But also, my contract is signed, and I need to get that money at some point. Like, I already signed the contract.
Right.
So it's really touchy right now in baseball. I'm not super optimistic, but I guess we'll see what the union does and what they come back with, if they come back with something.
Yeah, for sure. And I did want to point out, I'm sure you see that Callan's been leaving some comments on us. Check out Callan does the morning shows here on TQ and could be anywhere 11:30, 11:45, depending on what the schedule is for the day.
Of course, shout out to Callan.
But yeah, I mean, it was. I know that typically in negotiations, you always start kind of at one extreme or the other, and kind of talk towards it. So, in that sense, I'm still hoping that this isn't just we're so insulted we're going to walk away completely from it. I hope there is continued discussions, and from everything I've seen, it seems like there will be. I know there was a tweet that went out a couple hours ago that said the players had a conference and were pretty insulted by the offer, but it still seems like they still want to make something happen. Again, it's just I just can't help but think this is the owners trying to set up for a year or two down the line, whenever the CBA ends, trying to already create that divide amongst the players. Because you had said it earlier, is there are more players making less than $1 million than there are players making more than $1 million. So this one, again, it's kind of a thing that it doesn't affect those guys, the lesser players, as much if they just say, okay, we agree to this. But then now you're just pissing off all the the big names that are making that money, and they should make that money. That's that's what they're worth. The owners, like you said, the owners agreed. This is what you're worth.
They're the ones that set the value in the first place.
So, exactly.
And I know MLB is going to take a haircut with the reduced schedule and no fans. I saw a pretty interesting article. Actually, it was more skewed toward, which this is another interesting thing to bring up, the revenue loss as a league and how that may lead to expansion, to where MLB can throw out franchise fees that'll be like $1 billion. So long term for the league, that wouldn't be good, but short term money, that's an option. Because they will recoup a lot of that money by expanding, offering franchises to teams or cities that don't have them right now.
Sure.
So we may see that. I don't know, but as it stands right now, they got to come together on something, and it just seems like that second deal was, or really the third deal, was really a slap in the face to a lot of the players. And you have to think too, players. Like, what about guys that know, I may only have like 2 or 3 years left. So if I take this prorated deal and lose 40% of my salary, whatever it is, I'm not getting that back. Like, unless there's some kind of deferment put in there to where, all right, I'll still get the money eventually. Then you might have some middle ground. But I think they got to work something out. The owners are controlling the whole narrative of this because everything gets leaked out by, Rosenthal, Jeff Passan, somehow before it even gets to the union bargaining table, and then it's just like, all right, it's on you guys. Like, we put it out there, figure it out. And I think the players' union is just kind of like, are you guys serious? Like, really?
Yeah, I mean that's the advantage for the owners of throwing it out first, is they can always say, look, we're trying to make it work. They're the ones saying no to it, and that's kind of a way to kind of get the public on the on the side of the billionaires over the side of the millionaires, which I find funny, but it's good strategy tactic on their end, I suppose. But yeah, it's again, hopefully we do see some sort of an offer again before the end of the week, because that'll give us a good sign that this season might actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best indication, I think, at this point, that they're still trying to actually talk to each other, if there is even a counter proposal from the union. So, holding out hope for that. It's not going to be what the owners want, but it's going to be at least, all right, here we come back, and then we're still in a discourse. But that was really unfortunate to see that the owners, basically doubled down and are like, oh, okay, well, the guys that we agreed that were worth this much, they're going to take the biggest cut. And, we'll basically, like we were already saying, essentially dissolve the union as we head into the CBA here coming up in, 1 or 2 years?
Yeah, I think it's one or two. I can't remember which.
So, yeah, I don't know. Baseball's in a weird spot right now, where it seems like NBA and NHL are moving towards something. The one thing I do as we slide into sort of the NBA part of it, um, it seems like still logistic things they have to work out, but they have gotten closer to doing something. There's a few, Mark Cuban threw out there the idea of some kind of play-in, sort of a round robin tournament or like regular season games to have a play-in tournament to get into the 16 team, which I think is unfair to some of those players too on the lesser teams, because it's like, all right, we have to make arrangements to travel, isolate ourselves from our friends and family, just to be in this like dog and pony show. And what's the prize? We get in and get killed in the first round by the Lakers or the Bucks or something like that.
Yeah.
So that is also kind of annoying, but at least they're sort of moving forward beyond that part. That's sort of up in the air still, but they're trying to make it work, whereas MLB is stuck on the money part, and it's like the money part is the whole part. Like, we can't get past that. We have nothing.
Yeah, and the NBA again is they've been kind of throwing out a lot of different things. I know we discussed it on Monday, the whole 16-team playoffs, and then you just mentioned the play-in. There was another format that got brought up. It was either early this morning or late last night. That's kind of similar to like a international soccer style, where they take the 16 best records plus the next 4, so you got 20 teams. You kind of divvy them up, draw them into pools. Have them play 2 games against each team, so 8 games, and then the top 2 teams from each pool move on to the tournament. I do kind of like that idea a little bit better as opposed to the other things they've been throwing out. I'm not against the 16-team playoff as long as they go directly into the playoff. Like, if they want to do like a 2-week thing to finish the season, there's little to no incentive for those teams that are on the bottom to show up. The Warriors are already eliminated. Like, why should they go there? Why should they risk their health to go in there?
Why should they risk their sweet lottery pick?
Yeah, right.
Look around and win the whole thing. Oh no!
So it is, it is a good sign that NBA really seems like they want to do this. I did see another tweet earlier. I don't remember who sent it out. It might have been Windhorst. I can't remember. But I guess they are looking into concerns about the housing, I guess you would say, for the players if they do the whole thing in Orlando, because some of the hotels on the Disney World property are nicer than the others, I guess. So there's concerns about that. But again, at least it seems like they're moving forward. Hockey seems like they've already got they've got their format figured out. Now they just got to figure out again the logistics of getting everybody into the country, and where are they going to play at, how are they going to house them. Of course, safety testing as well. One thing I did find funny, I brought up to you in the pre-show, is with the hockey format or the playoff format they're doing, none of the California teams are going to make it. So nice job. At least the Ducks and the Kings can say they're in an obvious rebuild. The Sharks, they just instead of waiting until the conference finals to blow it, they decided to blow it ahead of time. So.
No, and I get, as far as like going back to some of the NBA, different ideas of formats and things like that. Think about the TV partners involved with this. There's not going to be fans there, so they're going to have to like kind of drum up some drama here to get some TV ratings. So you have to get creative with it. I think the NHL coming out and having this plan does help them, just by the fact, like we were talking earlier, if you can get something back out there and going, especially if you can get out there before some of the other leagues, then you're going to get a big bump ratings-wise. Because, like, look at NASCAR. When they came back, it was like the most highly rated NASCAR telecast in, like, forever. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said for that. And like I said, you have to get creative and think of ways, but it's not worth it, jeopardizing players' health or making them go out of their way to do these different things just to kind of show up, just to be there. And it's like, all right, well, obviously we're not going to be there, in the conference semifinals or even the, whatever. So, but they're already in the logistics stage. So like what we've been saying about baseball, they can't even come to agreement on the money. And so then they have to figure out the rest of it.
Right.
So that's the frustrating part as far as baseball. But, stay tuned, as we all are. We'll update you as we find out. But do want to bring on a guest here on the Canada Steak Burger Celebrity Hotline. Speaking of Canada, your home for meat that is not Canadian, or really steaks, honestly. But it is delicious. City Heights home for delicious burgers. We have Callan joining us on the stream. Callan, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening, gents. How we doing?
Doing well.
Gotta get Callan the air horn.
Callan gets the air horn every time. We're just trying to sift through, some of what looks legitimate, what looks ridiculous, or other sort of logistical problems with these leagues coming back. I know you talked about it a little bit on your show this morning. I caught a little on my break at work. But how do you feel about I mean, the biggest thing for me is baseball right now. What do you come down on that? Do you think there's even a chance that we see baseball, or does the union just pull away entirely, or what do you think?
Ron, I kind of feel like I've said this, the longer that this thing drags out, it's just going to get worse. And I think that you guys brought up a great point earlier about, they just kind of threw this in their face pretty much. And, and I had touched base on pretty much all three of the leagues today on the morning stream. And, baseball there's too much of this going on. And, Ron, you've been probably the most vocal about, baseball already has these on, labor disputes and seasons being canceled or stopped in the middle of the year because of, labor issues and players and the union and things like that. So I think, though, that I've said, though, that there's like doomsday dates, like there's a deadline that they have set that, okay, if we don't reach an agreement by this day, kiss the season goodbye, pretty much, is what I've said for the longest time.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because if they're talking about, we're going to do 3 weeks of spring training after we come to terms, before, and they'll still be figuring out logistical things at that point. But if you really want to, I mean, which would be necessary, really, because these guys have been sitting at home for 2.5 months now at this point. You can't just throw them back into like games that count for something. So the clock is really getting tight right now, I think, for baseball.
Yeah, and Jeff Passan, because I've kind of like told everyone, if you want notifications on Twitter, put them on. Yeah, he about broke my phone with the whole, as Tyler Dinkmaker was reading off about that breakdown of the whole pay rate and the salary scale too. And then for basketball, I think Mark Cuban's idea, while it sounds cool, there's no need. I said that very vocally this morning. There's no need to bring back Golden State, Cleveland, Atlanta, teams that are buried in the sand, to play 5 or 7 meaningless games. For what? Just like I said, help stockpile their chances of getting LaMelo Ball and his 3-ring off the court circus, which is what some teams probably don't want to deal with or touch with a 10-foot pole. And then I think with hockey, though, and I think with hockey, with the announcement coming out yesterday in that very brief press conference from Commissioner Bettman, but that plan seems like it'll work. Now, the only thing, though, and I said this very late in my program today, was that imagine if you're a fan of the Bruins or the Blues. You had the best overall record at the time of a stoppage, because they were going off total points, not the points percentage. Just think these two, behemoths who met in the final last year, they may not get the top overall seed in their conference. They could go to Vegas or go to Washington or Philadelphia. So I think that kind of adds a bit of a intriguing aspect about that round robin tournament. I do agree, though, while I said it should have been survive in advance for that qualifying round or the 5 through 12 matchups, I don't think the NHL wanted teams to come back to play one game and then someone loses and they're out of the race.
Right.
And then across the board, though, too, I do think, though, as I also said, that the Canadian government is requiring a 2-week mandatory quarantine. So I doubt that that Vancouver would be a host site. I would probably see it maybe being in maybe somewhere where they have some sort of loosened restrictions. Maybe it could be in Los Angeles at Staples Center or whatnot. But I think that the plan sounds great. I think that they also have good plans in place for the draft lottery and for the actual entry draft in June. They have like a phase 1, phase 2, depending on who actually wins the draft lottery. So say a team that's already in the playoffs somehow manages to get a top 3 pick, they would redo it without them being involved. So I think that while that there's maybe some cautious optimism with that, I think that the format is going to be killer. It's going to be exciting to see how this works. I think it's going to be great, though, too, that they have a plan in place as a safety net in case that, as mentioned, say the Blue Jackets or the Leafs somehow win a top pick in the draft, that they have it in place where the Ducks, Kings, or Sharks could have a shot at the top overall pick, though I think Detroit probably gets that. And that there are plans in place, though, whether it's the quarantine, whether it's what happens if there's a positive test. So Believe it or not, though, guys, even though that we love to bang on Bettman, he may have probably kind of cleaned up that stained reputation for once. Who knows?
Which would just be the
Well,
worst.
Well, cleaned up, I don't know. He's doing something good, but he's still gonna get booed to hell every time he shows up for anything.
Sat
But,
back like a snake in the grass. Typical
You know,
Bettman.
you did bring up interesting thing about where they're going to hold it, because I think they came out with a list of, what was it, like 10 different places that they could potentially host this NHL thing.
Yeah, and I believe that just Vancouver, I think, or Vancouver and Toronto were the only two, because I know that Toronto has some sort of separate or different rules in place for stay-at-home orders, where like certain gatherings are banned till the end of June, but sporting events were not axed from that. But I think they'll still, with that quarantine mandate by the Canadian government, would say no thanks to Toronto or Vancouver. So I would probably maybe look in maybe in Los Angeles, Vegas. I know that they're going to be reopening one of the casinos as of June 4th or June 5th. And there's other markets in the U.S. that could probably do it, though. But the plan in place, I think, looks great. It perhaps could be some kind of a blueprint for the NBA to follow. As I know that right now they're talking about or that it's for sure going to be in Walt Disney World in Orlando. Yeah. And I personally would be also for them going 1 through 16. I know that Adam Silver has talked about that. I know that they have guinea pigged it in the women's NBA and probably have done other things to guinea pig, whether it's been the challenge system at the G League level. So I personally think that the playoff format, if they do in fact go that route, could work. As I've said, the past 4 years that the women's league has done it, it's been very, very fun. Where it's literally been like the best 2 teams, whether it's been 1 and 2, but it's had a lot of great drama, great storylines where they have played it out. I think the first 2 or 3 rounds are literally 1 game, single elimination. You win, you go on, and we've had a lot of upsets at those levels. So it could perhaps, maybe not intrigue everyone for the first round when I think you said the Bucks were supposed to play the Magic in round 1 of that new format. That could be ugly, and then the Lakers playing the Nets, but I think it's worth a shot this year. And, who knows, maybe if in fact that, ratings go up, maybe people get intrigued by the new format, that maybe this becomes a new thing.
I think, there's going to be some tweaks that will ripple out from this. Obviously, the regular season format will still kind of prevail over everything, but
Definitely.
We might see some new things come into play, depending on how it goes over with the fans. And, TV ratings obviously are kind of like the overlord of this whole thing. So anyone gets like a taste of like, oh, the ratings are through the roof, then they're going to try to do it again. So I could see that, but it's interesting to see where it's going. It just seems like NBA and NHL kind of have their head on more straight, whereas
they have all their ducks
MLB cannot,
and yet here's Major League Baseball.
A conversation even, yeah.
Way to go, fellas.
Yeah. Keep up the great work.
Always comes down to the money, man. That's all. That's all it
every
is.
single time. Hey, you guys have a good rest of your night, and hopefully I'll have something more to bring to everyone tomorrow morning at 11:30 or 11:45. And I'm ready to bang my head against the wall with baseball pretty soon. But take care, guys. And we'll see you guys later.
Thank you for calling in. Check them out in the mornings, 11:30, 11:45. See, we are up against it here. Ronnie, was there anything else that you wanted to add in before we go off the air?
No, I just want to mention that the Thermacell is an excellent product. You can find it on Amazon. They're not a sponsor yet, but they should be.
They could be. You could be. As always. That's their tagline right there.
I'm giving you free marketing here. Come on.
All right. Well, I see we're up against here, so everybody stick around. We got Ask Auntie Bev should be starting on right now here on the network. Ronnie, you want to take us out?
Keep the fire.
Keep the fire.